Welcome to the Windsor Proud podcast, brought to you by the University of Windsor Alumni Association. This podcast brings University of Windsor alumni together to share their expertise and experience. Now, enjoy an engaging conversation celebrating the talents of UWindsor alumni.
Welcome to Windsor Proud, a podcast for the University of Windsor alumni and friends. My name is Gordon Orr, and I'm the president-elect of the University of Windsor Alumni Association, and I'm happy to be your host for today's episode. Joining me today is a proud Windsor grad, Lyn Baluyot. Welcome, Lyn.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us. Lyn is the Vice President and Chief Transformation Officer for Transform Shared Services Organization. And as a member of the Transform Senior Leadership Team, Lyn leads the Transformation Office, which is responsible for the delivery of various clinical information initiatives and clinical applications. She's a nursing grad, class of 1994, and she holds a BA in psychology. It's wonderful to have you here. Thank you very much, Lyn. Lyn, can you tell us about Transform SSO and what does it mean to our region?
So Transform Shared Services Organization is an organization that was established through a funding transfer from the 5 hospitals in our Lyn, so our local health integration networks, which is going away with all the differences, but it's the 5 hospitals. So Windsor Regional, Hotel Dieu, Erie Shores, Chatham-Kent, and Bluewater put their funds together to create an organization which delivers shared services. And those shared services include supply chain, as well as IT and information management and the transformation office.
Lyn, you recently led the Erie St. Clair member hospitals through a major clinical transformation with the implementation of a regional electronic health record spanning the continuum of patients' health journey. Tell us about that and the recent launch at Windsor Regional Hospital.
No, absolutely. So a little more than 2 years ago, our region signed a contract with Cerner Corporation, which is one of the large vendors for health information systems or an electronic medical record. One of the desires of this region, and has been in play for at least 10 years now, is to create a singular patient record for all our patients within the region. So it wouldn't matter which facility you went to, whether you went to Chatham or went to Windsor Regional, Hotel Dieu, or Erie Shores, you would have access to that person's medical record. So think about that. As a patient, I don't have to tell my story 10 times. It's there. I would have the whole history of care for that patient. And so what this region set about doing is, how do we implement something like that across the region? Make it a regional implementation. So no matter which emergency department you went to, the record looks the same. It doesn't matter what forms are used at one site. It's the same type of forms in the system that would be used. And so that allows us to create a new foundation for the way that we'll deliver care, because now we'll have data that we can actually analyze that's consistent between the sites and all that fun stuff. We can track patients and look at their usage of different services and where we may need to change the way we deliver those services. So that was the core of the project. And that started about 2 years ago. Starting in September, we started with our first implementation being Erie Shores Healthcare, moved on to Hotel Dieu and Chatham November 1st. And then Windsor Regional was our last implementation. And with Windsor Regional, we brought up approximately 50% of the total number of patients, volume, staff, et cetera, that would be utilizing the system. So if you think about our region now, any patient that moves between any of these hospitals, the physicians now have access to that record. And in this time of COVID, where we are transferring patients between hospitals, if there's an outbreak or for a variety of reasons, we now don't have to print out the whole electronic medical record. That record just follows that patient and it's there. And it means better, safer care for our patients at the end of the day.
Well, that's a tremendous project for sure, and congratulations on a successful implementation.
Thank you.
Well, that's a big region to cover for sure.
Absolutely.
And we appreciate the efforts you make to make sure there are synergies between all of those hospitals. So how about your University of Windsor experience? You attended the University of Windsor and pursued a degree in nursing and then a BA in psychology. And what did it mean to you to attend the University of Windsor?
Well, a couple of things. I grew up in Windsor, and when I was getting ready to graduate from high school and all the like, and it's hard to believe how long ago that was as I prepped my second child to leave high school now. Um, I was looking for programs that would allow me to study near home, as well as a well-rounded program. And the University of Windsor nursing program was considered one of the better programs in the province at the time, still is. And it also had a unique feature in that we could do some of our clinical practices in Detroit. And I thought that would be a really incredible opportunity as well.
Wow. And did you do that in Detroit?
I did. So I did my part of my pediatric rotation and part of my obstetrical rotation in Detroit at the time.
Okay. All right. So with over 20 years experience, as you say, and by the way, you're still younger than I am. I graduated in 1989. But with 20 years experience in the healthcare industry as a nurse, administrator, and now as a partner at Health Transformation, National Lead Health Activation Services at Deloitte Inc. in Toronto, what led you back to our area?
So as I was wrapping up my consulting career, so I had been a consultant for over almost 20 years, both in the United States and in Canada. So I did some of my partner work when I was out of the Detroit office. But it got to a point where I was in my career where I was like, I really want to do something. I don't want to say meaningful because all my work as a consultant had been meaningful, but something that was closer to home. And I was kind of done travel at the time, done having to get on a plane 4 days a week and go all over the country. My kids were at an age where I needed to come back home. And so it was just at that point, this opportunity came up. Had been doing work with Maz, who is our Chief Information Officer at Transform, as it relates to a Cerner project across the province. And he and I connected that way, and he started asking if I would be interested in coming and leading this little tiny project we call Evolve. So it was a great opportunity to do a couple of things that were really important to me. One being able to help establish a new foundation for the way we deliver healthcare in Windsor, Ontario.
Very meaningful work for sure. Now, obviously, you were passionate about celebrating the talents of University of Windsor grads and hiring local. Could you tell us more about that, please?
Yeah, so typically when you do a large scale hospital information system project like this, it's not unusual to hire a bunch of consultants and have them implement. And, that's not what I wanted for a variety of reasons. I think it's really important that you build the talent within an organization, as well as build the economy or contribute to the economy in some shape or form when you're doing a project of this size and this magnitude. And I knew that we had great clinicians that are graduating both from the University of Windsor as well as St. Clair College and the Schulich School of Medicine, but we also have some great computer science folks that are graduating from the University of Windsor. And why not tap into that? Like, why do we always have to go to Toronto and other places? And the part that has always annoyed me is our talented people find great work in Detroit. Well, why not bring them back home? Now, I don't know if it was foreshadowing or just plain old luck. Actually, having hired and built up our cadre of people from local did amazing things for us when the pandemic hit. So majority of our consultants that we did have from Cerner, which is our vendor that we use to implement our, from whom we purchased our health information system, are American.
Okay.
And as of March of 2020, they couldn't cross the border anymore. And so they have not actually been with us during our go lives. And we've done 4 major go lives in the region. And we couldn't have done what we did if we didn't have our local people in play. And the fact that we were able to look and be creative with identifying talent in the area and then building up that talent, I think just put us in a remarkable spot so that we could actually go live and not be delayed due to staffing considerations about border crossing and the pandemic and all the like.
Well, thank you very much for making sure that A, that there's the talent there, but then B, that you're looking inwards at the University of Windsor graduates. That's fantastic. Good stuff. What advice would you have for our new nursing students that are graduating out of school right now, Lyn?
So a couple things, and it's funny because I've had an opportunity to talk with a bunch of nursing students recently as a part of the work that I do. Um, you've spent 4 years getting your degree. What I would recommend is that you spend at least that amount of time being a bedside nurse. And I know it can be really tempting to all of a sudden you see some cool project or hear about another cool opportunity. You're like, oh, I'm not going to be a bedside nurse. I'm going to go do that. But I can tell you my years as a bedside nurse, and mind you, I didn't spend a long time as a bedside nurse, but those contributed to my ability to do the work that I do today. That I understand what the frontline staff are experiencing, I understand process, but more importantly, I understand it from both the patients and the family's perspective. And that at the core has to be what we do. And it has to be about what we need to think about. So that's piece of advice number one. And then piece of advice number two is, I think if anything, what the pandemic has taught us, especially for healthcare workers or any type of frontline staff, whether it's healthcare workers, engineers, et cetera, that keep the city running, is that you have to take care of yourself. Giving and giving all the time to make sure everybody else is taking care around you just means that you end up burnt out. And
Right.
too often in this profession, especially nursing, we see the burnout and we see it happen faster and faster. And you need to figure a way on how to take care of yourself so that you can still continue to be that caregiver that you want to be.
Well said, and that's great advice. And I think, Lyn, if this pandemic's taught us anything, is to appreciate more our healthcare workers and to thank them. And I know there have been numerous campaigns that have tried to do that and remind us that we should be doing that. And I don't think healthcare workers, as you say, are just the ones that maybe are at the bedside, but it's all of those support people that help them fulfill their roles and responsibilities. And I would suggest that you are part of that system as well. So I want to thank you as well. Thank you for being a healthcare worker.
Oh, thank you.
Now, I'd like to ask you if there's anything else you'd like to add to what you've shared with us today so far.
So one of the things, even when I was a partner at Deloitte in Toronto, that I want people, our alumni and our alumni, especially who are in positions where they can hire people, is take that opportunity to look inward and look at what we have to offer in Windsor. Windsor has so much that it can offer, and especially our graduates from the University of Windsor. And too often, I find that smaller universities, even though Windsor's not that small, but smaller universities tend to get overlooked because people tend to go for the bright and shiny names, right? They tend to go, oh, well, University of Windsor, what's that? And then they'll automatically go to the new hire from the University of Toronto or McMaster, et cetera. And I'm like, why not the University of Windsor? If that had been the attitude when I went to grad school and then eventually got a job with Deloitte, I wouldn't be where I am today. The fact is, my University of Windsor degrees put me in a great position, both from I got to meet wonderful people, learn a tremendous amount. It fostered a desire to keep learning. And then as well, it gave me the foundation to be successful, both in my grad school studies as well as future-wise in the career that I've been able to have, which has literally taken me all over the world. So that's all I ask, is that as alumni, we owe it to our school to look at what our opportunities can we provide for those new grads coming out.
Well, successful you have been, and certainly why not? Why not look inwards and see if there are University of Windsor graduates that can fulfill those jobs? I like to, Lyn, ask a final question of all of my guests, and it's this one. We use the phrase here at U of Windsor, we are Windsor proud. And we use it to describe what we feel about a city, a person, a thing, or something at the University of Windsor. Looking back, or even now, what makes you Windsor proud?
I think it's what I find interesting is I've grown up here, right? I came to the city when I was 3 years old, 3, 4 years old. as a relatively new immigrant with my parents, and left the city for a period of time to go get my grad degree and live abroad. And I've worked all over the world. And I will always consider Windsor my home. It is the place that I chose to raise my family for a variety of reasons. One, it is a true melting pot. You come to this city, and I have seen the way that it has evolved over time with the types of immigrants it's taken in with open arms, the way that it continues to evolve with the different types of immigrants from all over the world, and the fact that it leverages that talent pool, I think is amazing. I think the city itself is a hidden gem, as my husband likes to say, that very few people know about it and know what it has to offer, for both from cost of living to outdoor life to access to world-class theater and sports and everything just across the river when the border finally does open. But I think most importantly, what I'm proud of this city and having worked and lived in large cities is, while it's a smaller city, it still feels like a small hometown. I literally can walk down the street and run into people that I either know directly or have known directly, or they know somebody I know. That's how close knit this town is. And you can't get that. I've lived in Toronto, I've lived in Houston, I've lived in New Orleans, and having that type of feeling is really impossible to get elsewhere. But I will always tout how wonderful it is to be in Windsor, and how wonderful it was to be able to come back home and raise my family here.
That's fantastic. Lyn, we're very happy that you're so Windsor proud. We're happy that your travels brought you here to Windsor. And we thank you for making the community better for it. And we thank you for making the healthcare system better for it. Thank you for being with me today.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Windsor Proud podcast, brought to you by the University of Windsor Alumni Association. A special thanks to our alumni guests and hosts for sharing their insights and knowledge. If you would like to get involved with the Alumni Association, visit uwindsor.ca/alumni, and be sure to check back next month to hear a new Windsor Proud episode. Past episodes are also available online.